Chapter 7. The crisp night air bit at Rory's cheeks as he paced back and forth in front of the hangar, his footsteps crunching on the gravel. Above him, stars glimmered in the inky sky like distant beacons of hope, but Rory paid them no mind. His thoughts whirled in a chaotic storm, centered on one thing only: Thelma. Kidnapped. How in the world was he going to get her home safely? The task ahead seemed nigh impossible, a fool's errand, and yet Rory's resolve was as hard as iron. He would do whatever it took, even if it meant going alone. But Lord, how he prayed his old comrades would join him on this mad quest. Rory ran a hand through his hair, exhaling a cloud of vapor into the frigid air. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, threatening to crush his spirit. But he wouldn't let it. Thelma was counting on him. "Hold on, sweetheart," he murmured. "Your old man's coming for you." The low rumble of an approaching engine caught Rory's attention. He turned, squinting into the darkness. A pair of headlights cut through the gloom, growing larger as they neared. Rory's pacing ceased as John Walker's 1938 Cadillac came into view, its sleek black paint seeming to absorb what little light there was. Only the chrome trim and white walls stood out against the inky backdrop. The car pulled up alongside the hangar with a soft crunch of gravel. The driver's side door swung open, and John Walker unfolded his tall frame from behind the wheel. Moonlight glinted off his black flight jacket and matching trilby as he strode toward Rory, cutting an imposing figure. "John," Rory said in acknowledgement, his voice steady despite the tension thrumming through him. "Rory," John replied, his tone carrying the weight of unspoken questions. Before Rory could say more, the Cadillac's other doors opened. Henry Quinn emerged from the passenger side, his plaid coat and flat cap a stark contrast to John's darker attire. From the back seat came Willie McKinsey, clad in a well-worn field jacket and his own flat cap. The two men joined Rory and John, forming a small circle. Despite their different appearances, all four men shared a look of grim determination in their eyes. "Henry, Willie," Rory nodded to each in turn. "Thanks for coming." Henry clapped a hand on Rory's shoulder. "Course we came. Wouldn't be anywhere else." Willie merely grunted, his eyes darting about as if searching for unseen threats. A gust of wind swept across the airfield, carrying with it the promise of a long, cold night. Rory suppressed a shiver, more from nerves than the chill. "Let's get in out of the cold," he suggested, moving toward the hangar's side door. "Got a lot to talk about." Rory pulled open the heavy metal door, wincing at the loud creak of hinges badly in need of oil. He ushered the others inside, taking one last look at the star-studded sky before following them in. The hangar's cavernous interior greeted them, a cluttered blend of tools, crates, and aircraft parts. Their footsteps echoed off the high ceiling as they made their way to the far corner, where a battered desk served as an impromptu command center. John settled himself behind the desk, removing his hat and running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. Rory, Henry, and Willie gathered chairs from around the makeshift office area, the scrape of metal on concrete unnaturally loud in the tense silence. Rory placed his chair near the desk but remained standing, too keyed up to sit. He paced behind it, one hand stroking his chin as he tried to order his thoughts. John cleared his throat, breaking the uneasy quiet. "All right, Rory. You want to tell us why we're out in the freezing cold tonight? You said something happened with Thelma." Rory's pacing ceased. He gripped the back of his chair, knuckles whitening as he let out a long sigh. "She's been kidnapped," he said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "Being held somewhere in Ireland. They called Kara and me, made ransom demands." The other men reacted with varying degrees of shock and concern. John's eyebrows shot up, while Henry muttered a curse under his breath. Willie's perpetual scowl deepened further. "Good Lord," John breathed. "Kidnapped, you say?" Rory nodded grimly. "And they're making demands. If I don't follow through—" His voice cracked slightly, the enormity of the situation pressing down on him. "They said they'll kill her." A heavy silence fell over the group. John leaned forward, elbows on the desk. "How much are they wanting?" Rory shook his head. "It's not money they want. That'd be simpler in a way. No, they're after an antique, something that's been in my family for centuries." His frustration was evident as he continued. "I don't even have the dumb thing. Tried to explain, but they wouldn't listen. Just told me I had to deliver it, or else." Henry spoke up, curiosity overriding his initial shock. What's this antique they're after? Must be valuable, eh? Rory resumed his pacing, agitation clear in every movement. I'm not even sure if it's valuable, beyond being old. Only saw it once, when I was a lad. My grandfather showed it to me. He paused, aware of how mad he was about to sound. It's a sword. They claim it's magical, or some such nonsense. John leaned back in his chair, scratching his head. Well, that's a humdinger, he commented dryly. Rory slumped into his chair, nodding in weary agreement. Aye, a humdinger for sure. And it gets worse. They've given me 4 days to find it and bring it to them. Willie, who had been quietly cleaning his nails with a pocket knife, scoffed. Well, good luck with that. John shot Willie a warning look before turning back to Rory. You said you don't have this antique. Do you even know where it might be? No, I don't have it, Rory admitted. Got a few ideas where to look, but won't know for sure till I get there. Like I said, it's just an old sword. My grandfather and I once dug it up from a hidden spot on our property in Ireland. Beyond that, he shrugged. It's just been a family legend. John leaned forward, his interest clearly piqued. Rory, Henry here's asked you a few times what this antique is. I'd sure like to know what's so special about it that someone would go to the trouble of kidnapping Thelma. Rory met John's gaze briefly before his eyes dropped to the floor. He stood, resuming his anxious pacing as he rubbed his hands on his pant legs. It's just some old sword, he began, his voice low. But the legend, well, it says it's the sword of Nuada. Supposedly, no one could resist it, and once drawn from its sheath, no one could stand against it. He looked up, seeing the skepticism in his friends' faces. I know how it sounds, but that's what they're after. The hanger fell silent, save for the soft whisper of Rory's footsteps. He could almost hear the gears turning in his companions' heads as they processed this information. Finally, Rory stopped pacing. He stood behind his chair, not quite able to meet anyone's eyes. Look, fellas, he began, his voice thick with emotion. I know I've no right to ask you all for help. In any other situation, I'd call this a wild goose chase myself. But it's Thelma. His grip on the chair tightened. I can't just do nothing. I'm asking for your help. If I'm to have even half a chance at this, it'll only be because you're with me. The tension in the room was palpable as Rory finished his plea. He leaned heavily on the back of his chair, waiting for a response, any response, from his old comrades. Seconds stretched into minutes, the silence broken only by the faint ticking of John's wristwatch. Rory's heart pounded in his chest, each beat seeming to echo in the cavernous space. At last, Henry broke the quiet. Rory, he began, his voice hesitant. I've known you for over 10 years now. We've had each other's backs through thick and thin. He paused, a conflicted expression crossing his weathered features. My first thought is, I ought to be thinking of my wife and kids, but... John sighed heavily, nodding in agreement. This could very well be a suicide mission, Rory. You don't know what you're walking into. Once you turn over that antique, if you can even find it, what happens next? He shook his head. I'd suggest contacting the authorities in Ireland. Let them handle it. Rory's heart sank. He opened his mouth to argue, but before he could speak, a quiet voice cut through the gloom. I'm with you, Rory. All eyes turned to Willie, who had been so silent they'd almost forgotten he was there. John's eyebrows shot up in surprise. You what? He asked, incredulous. Willie, you complain about everything under the sun. Even when things are going great, you've got something negative to say. You'd be the last person I'd expect to go along with this madness. Willie folded his knife with a snap, tucking it into his pocket. His perpetual scowl deepened as he met John's gaze. Rory's a friend, he said simply. He's asked for our help. His plan might not be the best to you and me, but he needs to get his daughter back, so I'm going to help him do that. The grizzled mechanic's eyes swept over the group. The two of you can decide for yourselves what's best. But in my book, anyone who wouldn't help a friend in need like this, well, they ain't much of a friend at all. With that, Willie sat back in his chair, arms crossed over his chest. The hanger fell silent once more as his words sank in. Well, John said with a wry smile, when you put it like that. The tension in the room broke like a dam. All 4 men burst into laughter, the sound echoing off the hangar walls. It wasn't that anything was particularly funny. more a release of the pent-up stress and worry that had been building since Rory's phone call. As the laughter died down, Rory sank into his own chair, feeling as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "So, Rory," John said, leaning forward with his elbows on the desk, "what's this plan of yours? How are we going to bring Thelma home safe and sound?" Rory took a deep breath, organizing his thoughts. "Well, first things first, we need to get to Ireland. That's where you come in, John. Once you get us there, we'll need gear and supplies." He turned to Henry. "Don't you have some contacts over there now? Maybe you could reach out to them, see what they can do for us." Both men nodded, already making mental notes. Rory looked to Willie. "And Willie, you're the best mechanic I know. Make sure you've got whatever tools you can travel with. No telling what we might need." "Roger that," Willie grunted, a hint of pride in his gruff voice. "As for me," Rory continued, "I think I've got the sword's location narrowed down to 3 spots. We'll retrieve it, and, well, that's about as far as my plan goes at the moment. We've got some time between now and then to work out the rest." John drummed his fingers on the desk, brow furrowed in thought. "Rory," he said slowly, "why do you think they want this sword of yours? What's so all-fired important about it that they'd go to the trouble of kidnapping Thelma instead of just trying to buy it off you?" Rory fell silent, his expression clouding over as he considered how to answer. The other men could see the change on his face, sensing the weight of whatever he was about to say. "Now, I don't know the whole story," Rory began cautiously. "Can't fill you in on all the details, because I don't rightly know them myself. But there's a legend about this sword. My parents never spoke much of it, but I remember hearing my grandparents talk now and again." He leaned back in his chair, eyes distant as he recalled half-forgotten conversations. "It's been passed down through our family for generations, until it came to my grandfather. He and my grandmother, they thought it was the famed Sword of Nuada. According to them, no one could resist its power, and once drawn, no army could stand against it." Rory looked around at his friends, seeing the skepticism in their eyes. "I know how it sounds. It's why I never bring any of this up. Sounds like madness. But you asked, so there you have it. I reckon these people want the sword because they think it'll give them some advantage, or bring them money, glory. Who knows?" He shook his head, frustration evident in every line of his body. "I don't rightly care why they want it. They can have the blasted thing, rusted or not. I just want Thelma back home and safe." Rory's voice cracked on the last word, and he quickly looked away, blinking hard. The other men pretended not to notice as he collected himself. After a moment of heavy silence, Henry spoke up, a hint of forced levity in his tone. "Well, that explains why you're a multi-millionaire and the sworn king of Ireland. It all makes sense now." The tension broke once more, as all 4 men chuckled. As it subsided, John slapped his hands on the desk and stood up. "Right then," he said, a determined glint in his eye, "I think it's high time we got a plane ready for takeoff. Let's go bring your daughter home, Rory." Rory felt a swell of gratitude as he looked at his friends. His eyes stung with unshed tears, which he quickly blinked away. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "All of you. I can't tell you what this means." John clapped him on the shoulder. "No need for thanks, old friend. Now, let's get moving. We've got a lot to do, and not much time to do it in." With renewed purpose, the 4 men began to plan their journey. John headed for the radio to arrange clearance for their flight. Henry pulled out a small notebook, jotting down names and numbers of contacts in Ireland. Willie started making a list of tools and equipment they might need. And Rory stood for a moment, watching his friends spring into action. For the first time since that terrible phone call, he felt a flicker of hope. They had a long, dangerous road ahead, but he wasn't walking it alone. "Hold on, Thelma," he whispered. "We're coming for you." With that, he joined the others, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The quest to save Thelma and unravel the mystery of the ancient sword had begun.